This conference will now be recorded.
Let me share my screen. Please confirm if you're able to see my screen.
We can see your screen.
Good, thank you. All right. Before we start, a quick introduction about myself. This is Praveen Kumar Sriram. I have around 18 years of experience into various Microsoft technologies. I'm a Microsoft certified trainer, and I also authored a couple of books. In fact, it's just one book, but different editions. It's Azure Serverless Computing Cookbook. So far, there are 3 editions, and you can download this book from Microsoft Azure Resource Center. It's most of the topic that is discussed here are related to Azure functions and its integrations. So most of you or many of you are from data background, right? So this book might not be that useful, but if you are planning to learn some serverless related concepts, then definitely this book will be helpful. These are some of the certifications that I have completed, and last I think 7 to 8 years, right? At least 7-8 years I have been into Azure, working for various projects like cloud native applications, modernizing the applications, DevOps, database migrations, ETL. So these are different kind of projects that I have worked so far. So and I also do a lot of contribution to the community. I have a personal blog. I have written around 130 articles so far. I also have a YouTube channel, of course, limited number of videos so far. I think 20 videos or 19, 20 videos. And I also talked about some Azure in some of the conferences. And I have been awarded as MVP. So 3 times. So last 2021-22 also I'm MVP now from a popular website called C# Corner. So they have given this award for my contributions to the community, and I have been awarded as the best Azure trainer by Urban Pro for last 3 years. 2021 also I was awarded last year as well. Okay, that's a quick intro about my work related to Azure. Yeah, so this course, there are multiple courses that I do, but this course is specific to people who are planning their career into Azure data engineering side. I'm repeating, it's Azure data engineering. Okay, so
is there any prerequisite for this one? Is there any prerequisite?
Yeah,
for this.
This is not Azure DevOps. There are prerequisites for it. If you are currently working as some DBA or an ETL developer, then this course is recommended for you. But if you are a Windows admin or something else, right, then I don't recommend this course, but I would recommend Azure DevOps to you. So I'm also planning to start Azure DevOps in a week or 2, but this course is specifically for people who are into data side or analytics side, like Power BI developer, Tableau, SSRS, or ETL like Informatica, SSIS, or DBS who have knowledge on SQL, Oracle, MySQL, right? So I would recommend this course only to those guys. But in case if somebody has recommended to you about this course, and if you think that there are a lot of jobs, definitely you can also do this. But it will be easy if you have prior experience on data set. But if you spend a lot of time, if you work hard, definitely you can learn all these as well. Okay, but again, in any project, right, in real time, people might ask you anything. So when you join a team as an Azure expert, they will expect you to do everything in Azure. But we don't know, right? A person who is a data expert end up doing DevOps, or a person who is expert in DevOps will end up doing ADF or some other data related things as well. Okay, but if you are passionate about learning, definitely you can do this course as well. It's up to you. But if you're not sure, then probably let's have this discussion today. And if you think that you are able to understand it, and if you're confident about doing this, definitely you can also do this without any prior experience. Okay, all right, let's start. So I'm not going to discuss about any basics thing, and what is cloud, why is it helpful, what are the advantages, all that. But we will, when we start sessions, we will discuss those basics on what is cloud, what are the various offerings. Those things we will actually look into when we start the classes. Today we are going
Actually,
to.
I have one query.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So in data engineering course, there are a lot of content like Data Factory, Databricks, and SQL Database, NoSQL, Cosmos DB. And all. So will you cover all these topics in 30 hours?
I already,
Because it's
yeah. I
but
gave you.
but
I
is it like
shared the course content. I shared the course
yes,
content.
yeah, I gone through that course content. So the content is good, but will you cover all these topics in 30 days, like 30 hours?
We will try 30 hours. If not, we will extend. But yeah, we will cover all those topics. Sometimes what happens is like this, right? We are having question. We are discussing instead of talking on the
Yeah.
topics. We are discussing. So many times I have to answer all of your questions, right? So if
Mm.
for this reason we might have to extend. But whatever
Okay.
is covered in the course content, all those will be covered. Even if we take 40 hours, definitely that will be covered.
Okay. And
Okay.
one more thing, like, will you cover only the basic level of training, or you will cover
You will
like a
understand that.
medium?
So don't believe me if I might say I will cover advanced things, all that, right? So
Hmm.
don't believe that, but just listen to this session. If you
Hmm.
think that my training is good and I'm covering enough things that are required for you to start your career, then you can do it. All right,
Yeah,
thank you.
understood.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Praveen, one more question.
let's park the questions at the end of the sessions, if you don't mind.
Yeah, Praveen, this is the last question.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, after completed the course, sorry, when the course is completed, can you give the recording session or how we can share?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, recordings will be given. That's why I recorded. Yeah, absolutely. Because you
Okay,
might come late, might join late, right? You might miss some sessions. Yeah, definitely. Recordings will be given. The code that I write in the sessions will be given. Yeah,
okay.
absolutely. All right, and before we start, it's not specific to any certification, guys. But you can definitely attempt a certification. There is a certification called DP. DP means Data Platform. DP203 is a certification that Azure Data Engineer should plan. But this course is not focused 100% on this exam. Definitely 70% or 60% is covered. So let me be very honest. So once you complete this course, you need to do some more preparation, and then you can give this exam. This is a certification. Okay? But we will cover some other DevOps concepts as well, which is not part of this exam. So that's why we will be covering around 60% of the course contents of this, because we'll also be covering some basics. We'll start from basics, right? And we'll also do some Azure DevOps. So that's why I don't do 100% of this certification. Just remember, DP203 is an exam that you should target if you are interested. But this course will mainly focusing on real-time concepts that will help you in getting an interview as quickly as possible. Okay. All right, let's start. So when you want to start working with Azure, right, you need to have Azure subscription. So if this is the first time you are learning Azure, then when you want to start working with Azure, you need to create a account in Azure. Just Google Azure free trial and navigate to the first link, and you can start free for the very first month. So Microsoft gives us $200 credit for the first 1 month. After that, we will have to enable our credit card. Okay, it's straightforward. It asks you credit card, phone number, email address. That's it. Okay, it's very straightforward. Once you create it, it automatically takes you to portal.azure.com. Okay, all right. So once you have your account, you can start working with it. Okay, so but before we do anything here, let's understand what we are going to do. Oops, I'm sorry guys. Yeah. So we are going to learn about Data Factory. That is one of the most important thing that data engineers should learn. There are many jobs in the market with this service. So when you're working with this service, you don't have to write any line of code. It's a UI based tool. Okay, all right. We are also going to develop a project using Data Factory. Probably we'll spend 1 week time in. We'll spend a lot of time in Data Factory because this is the most important one for data engineers. So we are going to solve a problem that one of the fictitious company called DreamTech is having. DreamTech, a company called DreamTech is facing an issue. So as a as a data engineer, we are going to solve a problem today. I'm going to make it very simple today, but when we are working in the actual sessions, we will make it a little complicated so that you understand how things work in real time. So now the requirement for this company is they have multiple partners. Okay, so they share their data. Here I'm talking about employee data, but that could be any data in Excel files, CSV files, database, many different sources. So these guys, each partner, right? Each partner, they upload the CSV files into some FTP. So they do it, somebody do it weekly, somebody do it daily, right? So what we need to do is, as a data engineer, we need to provide a solution wherein we process the CSV files uploaded into SFTP as soon as possible. And then dump that data, take the data from CSV files and insert that into database. That's the requirement, and we need to achieve this without writing any line of code. And the program that we are going to implement should run either daily or weekly, depending on the requirements. Okay. All right. That is the simplest requirement, but in real time, the requirement will not be as simple as this is. But today we are going to implement a simple thing. But later in the sessions, we will make it a little complicated and implement that complicated functionality. Okay. So now this is the problem. So problem statement. This is the objective given by our customer. So this is the requirement basically. Now the solution that the data architect has given is this. Right. First, we will copy the files from staging area, from SFTP to staging area. So I don't have SFTP configured. So we are going to create this staging area in Azure. Okay. And then we will process this CSV files and insert that data into database. Okay. So we are going to develop using Azure Data Factory, which is a no code or low code solution. I'm not saying zero code. Earlier I mentioned we will not write any code, but we will write a very basic code. For example, in Excel you do some code, right? For example, if you want to sum all the rows, then you will write sum of very basic code, right? So like that, we will also have very little code or low code in Data Factory. Okay, that is what we are going to implement today. So to summarize, we are going to create all these today. First thing is Azure Storage Account. This is required for storing the CSV files coming from partners. Second thing is we need to read these files on a certain frequency, whether it is daily, whether it is manual, whether it is weekly, right? And then we need to process that data. We need to read that data. So we need to create something called as Data Factory. This is also called as ETL. So the ETL solution in Azure is Data Factory, or ADF in short. So now this ETL is responsible for reading from storage account and then inserting that into a destination called Azure SQL Database. So this is a SQL Server version of Azure. Okay, so we are going to implement these 3 steps today without writing any line of code. I'll show you how easy it is to implement with Data Factory. Okay, all right. So first we will create a storage account. Second, we will create the target. Once these 2 are ready, then we will implement this. Okay, I'm not going to explain each and every detail today. I will quickly create 1 and 2, but in the actual sessions we will discuss about those things slowly. All right, so now let's head over. You're able to see my browser right now?
Yes,
Yes.
Praveen.
Okay, so once you create an account in Azure, the next thing that you should do is create a resource group. Okay, so I already have a couple of resource groups, and it is very important that you follow some best practices when you're working in your projects, right? So naming convention is very important because you cannot change it later. The only solution is to delete everything and recreate. So instead of deleting those, it's very important that you follow naming convention all the time. So you should start with AZ, because when you're working in organizations, they will be using multi-clouds. So AZ stands for Azure, right? So put something AZ and then your project name. For us, I don't have any project, right? Or probably I use that DreamTech thing. So probably DreamTech could be something, or I will just say Azure Data is a project name. The next thing is, in case if you already been in IT, you will definitely understand environments, right? You will definitely have dev environment, staging environment, production, pre-prod, blah, blah, blah. So it always makes sense to have environment name in your resource group. And then where are you creating these resources? I'm creating these resources in US, specifically East US. Okay. So now cloud allows us to create any resource in any location available in Azure. I'm from India, Hyderabad, but I can create a server, a database somewhere in East US. That's the power of cloud. So we'll discuss all these basics in the actual sessions. But for now, understand that we are going to create something in East US location maintained by Azure. And what is the type of this service? This is resource group. So RG. Probably you should say 1, because there might be multiple resource group for the same project, for the same environment, for the same location. So this is the simplest bare minimum naming convention that everybody should follow. But when you join a team, probably they might add few more things. So you should contact them before creating anything. Okay. So in Azure, everything is a resource. So you see, these are all services. So resource group is service, app service is service, database is service, storage account is a service, virtual machine is service. Everything is service. We create resources belonging to each service. So I am creating a resource called resource group. So it gives us a final step to review all the details. Once you are happy with those details, click on create. It will create the resource group. This is the one that we just created, right? Click on that. So now what is a resource group? Resource group is nothing but a group a logical container of resources. Okay, so now we are going to create 3 resources today. The first one is storage account. So now we'll talk more about storage account later. So click on this. If you don't see this in your list, then you should click on all services and you can add anything into this menu. So this menu is highly customized. I can even drag and drop if you want this to be at the top. So like this, you can reorganize the menu items. So I already have a couple of resource groups. I already have a couple of storage accounts, but I want to create a new one. Click on create. So ensure that you choose the appropriate resource group, and then any service when you are creating, right, you will see many tabs. But basics, tags, and replace create. These are the 3 common things across all services. So because we are creating storage account, these are specific to storage account. Please note that all of these are not mandatory. Many of them are optional, but basic is mandatory for everything. So now we need to provide some details about storage account. So Azure data, you should follow naming conventions. Earlier we gave the same thing, right, for resource group. Hyphen data, hyphen east-west, hyphen storage account 1. But now there is a problem in this. Storage account does not allow hyphens. It does not allow capital letters. It does not allow special characters. So each service will have its own naming conventions. Okay, all right. So now you see, location is important. Location or region, both are same. There is a slight difference. We'll talk about that later. So now storage account is a service which helps us in uploading some files. You might have used Google Drive, Dropbox, right? So something like that. It's not very same, but something similar to that. Storage account allows us to upload files in petabytes. I'm not talking about gigabytes. I'm not talking about terabytes. You might have heard about hard disk with 5 terabytes, right? But I'm talking about petabytes. One storage account can store 5 petabytes of data as of today. It might increase in the future. Okay, all right. So now there are 2 types of performance levels. Depending on the requirements, you should choose the appropriate one. Standard and premium. Premium is for scenarios where you need high performance. This is very expensive, so we will go with standard. And this redundancy is very, very important. We'll talk about these options later. So I will pick LRS to save cost. So remember, when you're creating Azure, you always keep in mind about cost, because end of the day, cost, price, amount is very important, right? You should answer client, why are we getting the 3 bills, right? So always you should keep in mind about these options and try to ensure the cost is low as much as possible, unless you are sure that you want to use some premium feature. So today we are just learning something, so I will ensure that the cost is as low as much as possible. All right. So rest of all the features are not mandatory. So I'm going to click on review plus create. So we can review all the details, and it is running a validation on our inputs. So it is good. Now I can click on create button to create a storage account. Okay. All right. So now we need to start uploading some files. Yeah, so it will take 30 more seconds. Once that is done, we are going to upload a file. So let me show you the file that we are going to upload. I have a simple file with some employee details. Very basic one, right? So I'll close this. It just has some columns: employee ID, prefix, blah blah blah, all employee details, along with customer ID, in which company they are working. Okay. So I'm going to upload this file in a moment. So the service is created. Now storage has multiple services. It supports multiple things. It supports containers, file shares, queues, and tables. So now we are interested in uploading files, right? So containers is the one that we should use. There is file share as well. We'll talk about this later, but container is the one that we should use. I'm going to create a container, CSV files. Click on create, and I'm going to upload some files, at least one file. So from my local machine, I uploaded a file. I can upload millions of files into this. It's hardly 1.5 KB, but I can upload petabytes of data into this container now. Okay, so our source is ready. So now the second step that we discussed is target, our destination. Okay, our destination is SQL, Azure SQL Server. I want to leave this like this. I want to open a new tab where I can create our target. So I'll be jumping between tabs, guys. So should be, please bear with me. If you think that I'm going fast, please don't hesitate to stop me in the middle. So now in Azure, there are multiple options for hosting SQL Server, Microsoft SQL Server. I'm going to use this one. So first we need to create a server, and then we can create a database. Okay? So let me quickly create a server. I already have a couple of servers. I don't want to use them. I want to create a new one in our resource group. So AZ data is a project name. There is an environment. I want to create a SQL server for us. This allows hyphens, and it is going to create a domain as well for me. Okay, so this server will be created in east to west, and we need to provide username, password. So now understand that this is going to create a domain. So in Azure, SQL Server will have a public IP address by default, public domain by default. In on-prem, if you had experience working with data in on-prem, you might be knowing that databases will never have public IP addresses. They will only have private IP addresses because data is very confidential, right? You cannot expose those servers, those database servers to public because anybody can try to hack. But here, Azure gives us a public domain for database server, but though it is public, still there are many validations that are already in place. So a lot of security is in place, which will be handled automatically by Microsoft. But if you don't believe Microsoft, then we can also add our custom security on top of what Microsoft gives us. Okay, but obviously password is one security, though the password is still there. Still, there are other validations that we can also add. Okay, so we will talk about those later. For now, I'm good. The next thing is, let me prove what default Microsoft security checks are in place. Okay. In network tab, Sorry. It says, do you want to allow Azure Services to access this server? No, I don't want anybody to access this, including the owner. By default, owner cannot access this. Okay, that's what we are doing. And SQL Server is free of cost here. If you worked in on-prem, you might be knowing, right? If for database hosting, you first need to have a virtual machine. Create a virtual machine with Windows or Linux, and then install SQL Server inside it. But here in Azure, you don't have to create a virtual machine at all. Directly, we can create SQL Server, and it's free of cost. You don't have to purchase any license as well. Okay, so we'll talk more about the options, but here it's free of cost. Server is free of cost. Remember, guys, the basic server is free of cost. In just 30 more seconds, our server will be up and running. That's the power of cloud. If you have to do the same thing in on-prem, it takes at least weeks to create a machine, to install OS, to install SQL Server. All that will take at least minimum 1 week to months. But now this one is production grade SQL Server, almost production grade SQL Server. So once this is done, right, we are going to create a database. So SQL Server is a separate service, database is a separate service in Azure. So let's give a few more seconds to this. Usually it should be done in 1 minute approximately. We'll have to wait because without this we cannot create database. Yeah, it is done now. I can click on this button to navigate, or I can click on this to navigate to SQL Server. So right now it doesn't have any databases. We'll have to create a database. I can click on this button, or I can click here. I can click on create button. I already have a couple of databases. I want to create a new one in our resource group. I will just say database one, but naming convention should be followed, something like that. So remember I mentioned SQL Server is free because while creating SQL Server, we did not mention how much CPU, how much RAM is required for server. That's why it is free. So in Azure, with this option, SQL Server is free of cost. The basic one is free of cost, but database is not free of cost. This is one major difference in with on-prem and Azure. Okay, that means each database can have its own capacity. You see here, we are creating database. It is asking us how much capacity do you want your database to have. So I can change it. I don't want 32 GB. There are many options. We'll talk about all these options later, but I'm going to choose a basic one. Okay, so you will not understand DTUs, all that. Basically, there are two different types of compute that we can assign. Most of us, right, many of us know what is CPU and what is RAM. Every server will have these two, right? But in database world in Azure, there are two different models. One is vCore plus RAM. Okay, but the other one is DTU based model. DTU stands for database transactional units. So many were confused initially. Initially, our database only had this. Many were confused. They did not understand what is DTU. So they have come, Microsoft has come up recently, I think when I say recently, 2 years back, they have come up with core based models and RAM based models. Okay. This only increases or decreases the compute power. That's it. There is no other differences. Okay. And within DTU based model and within vCore based model, there are different pricing tiers. So depending on the requirement, you should either choose this or this or this. So for now, to save cost, I'm going with basic one. With basic, we get 5 DTUs. This is the compute power. DTUs is a combination of CPU, RAM, and IOPS, input outputs per second. And size, the maximum size of the database allowed is 2 GB. And what is this 5? 5 is DTU. DTU means the number of transactions that can be performed on this database is 5 only. Per second, 5 transactions. Beyond that, it will time out. So let me click on apply. That's it. I will choose LRS to save cost here. And the next thing is networking. I would like to connect to this database from my machine, right? So if I choose no, I will get an error. Okay, so we will add my IP address later. I'll show you later. Also, we can add. You don't need to do it right now while creating database. We can also do it later. These are all default ones. I don't want to configure any of these things. I'm good with this. So click on review plus create. Now you see there is a price involved in this database. So SQL Server is free of cost, but database is not free. So now it's done. Database is also created. So this is very straightforward in Azure, but in on-prem it takes a lot of time to do installation, OS installation, database configuration, right? A lot of maintenance work will also be there after it is done. In on-prem, Windows Server should be maintained throughout the lifetime, right? Windows patches, whenever there is a new version of Windows, we need to upgrade that. And SQL Server also a lot of versions. Whenever there is a new version, we need to upgrade that. And SQL Server also has patches, updates, bug fixes. So we'll have to ensure that all those are installed, right? But here in Azure, you don't have to do anything. All those installations at OS level and database level and server level, everything will be taken care by Microsoft automatically. You don't need to take backups also. You don't need to take backups of your database as well. Everything is taken care by Microsoft Azure team. Let's say after 1 week, right? Today we are creating the database. After 1 week, some business guy says that, hey, I want 3 days backup. It's very straightforward. All of those are available automatically. Microsoft guys take backups almost every minute. Not full backups, but incremental backups will be taken almost every minute. So that means DBAs will have very, very less work when you're working with Azure SQL Database. So now database is ready. It also gives us CPU power. Now, one problem with this approach is you cannot log into the server which is behind. That's not possible. Because it is not possible, some of the metrics are all shown in the portal. So right now, this is all plain because this is a very new database, right? So that's why it is plain. Okay, so now I would like to connect to this database from my local machine. So let me show you how to connect. So let me bring up SSMS, SQL Server Management Studio. In case if you have never worked with database, then this is a client to connect to database. So it requires some username, password, and URL. All right. So this is our database. Here in the overview blade, these are all blades. So these are all settings menu of database. So while you are in overview blade, we need to go here and click on copy link. A small link will come up when you hover. Oops, sorry guys. The UI is very complicated. You don't have to understand each and every property. That's not required. There are thousands of properties. So copy this URL and navigate to SSMS. Provide the server here, and I am using the same username and same password for all my databases. So this username password is correct and URL is also correct. Now, if I click on connect, wow, I was expecting an error. Oops, I'm sorry guys, I connected to some other project. I did not connect to the one that we just created. I'm so sorry. I did not paste it properly, I guess. Yeah, this is not our project. I'm sorry. I think I opened some other project, some other database. This is the one that we just created. Okay, so I need to copy. Oops, not this one, guys. What did we create now? I think we have selected a wrong resource group. Okay, I'm sorry, guys. I have selected separate incorrect server, incorrect thing. So let me create one more. Sorry for that. This is our project. I just said database one. So here I missed choosing. I'm sorry again. This is our resource group. The server is not shown here. Wait. Azure Data Dev East to West SQL Server, right? This is our database server. It is inside this resource group. It is in East US only. Okay, so I should see this data for sure. It starts with Azure Data. Somehow I'm not able to see that. Let me choose. These are resource group.
Sir, I have a question. Are we not able to see when this server was created when we go to the dashboard? Like how in the folders we will be having when the last modified. So based on that, can't we able to retrieve the server and then look for the one?
I'm not sure if I understand, Manju. So which dashboard you're talking about?
Just if you go to the dashboard, right, there are three dots icon, right? Before that, can't we not able to add certain things like when it was created, the created date, something like that, manage view, yeah, something like that.
Yeah, columns will be there. We can manage columns. Where is this?
I think edit
We can do
tag.
that, but somehow I'm not able to see our project here. See, there are three servers, right?
Yes.
All these three servers should be visible while we are creating a database. Okay, somehow our database is not, our server is not shown there. This one is not visible while I'm creating the database. That's surprising to me. It only shows 2. I'm not sure why. Probably could be a bug here. So let's do one thing. Let's take another path. Let's go to our server, which is this. And from here, I'll create a new database. Oh, so let's see what happens. I think there is a problem here. Enable retrieve pricing. Even the server should be shown here, guys. Unfortunately, it is not showing our database that we just created. So definitely there is a problem with server itself. Okay. So even this path is not working well. So let's take one more path. Forget about the server that we just created. Okay. So now I can directly go on database creation. Okay. Choose the required resource group. Okay. Provide database name. I will again say database 1. Because our server is not shown here until now, what I can do is I can create a new one right from here. Okay. So AZ data -dev -east-us -sql server 1. So this is already news. That means unique. The names of the services must be unique across Azure. Some names, not everything, because this is going to create a new domain, right? So that's why this URL, the name must be unique. Okay. SQL admin. Click OK. The server is not yet created, but just it saved the information here. Okay, we are creating a database. While creating database, we can also specify server names as well. So once I hit submit, both of them will be created. Okay, so we already selected this as basic. I'm going to do it again. And let me choose local. And then click networking. I want to leave it to default settings. And security, I want to leave it to default settings. And rest of all default. Okay, so review plus create. It is showing as cost. And click on create. So now it is going to create both. It creates a server and it creates a database as well. So it is going to take some time, probably a minute or 2. We'll have to wait. So earlier I created a server. I think there is some problem with Azure itself. Somehow I'm not able to see that. Probably it could be a cache issue as well. Okay, so let's give it a minute or 2. First, it creates a server. We have already seen it took 1 minute approximately. And database creation will also take some time. Overall, it might take 2 minutes. So the next thing that we are going to do once the database is created is we need to create a table, right? To store the data, right? We have CSV file. That CSV should be extracted and it should be saved into database target, right? So I already have a SQL script. A table called employee will be created now. I will create this, which contains all the columns and data types. And the primary key will also be there called employee ID. So I'm going to run this script as soon as our database is ready. Looks like database is created. Now it is submitting. I'm sorry, looks like database server is created. Now it is creating a database. So 30 more seconds probably. So now let's come back and see if server is created. Yeah, this is the new one. It is done. And fourth database should also be created. It is in progress. So if you leave that page, right, what you can do is you can see the notification bar. From here, you can again go back to that progress screen where you see the list of all deployments that are happening. Yeah, this is done. Now database is created. Now I can connect to the database. So provide the URL. So I am the owner of this database. I created this database from this machine. So now it has thrown an error. You see the error is your client IP doesn't have access to the server. So first of all, cancel. So let me give incorrect. Last character I gave is incorrect password. And I click on connect. So it doesn't even check whether the password is correct or not. First of all, you don't have access at all. You cannot connect to database server at all. Forget about whether your credentials are correct or not. So that's the level of security that Azure SQL Database has. So many customers think that public IP address or public URL to a database is very vulnerable, right? But that's not the case in Azure because Microsoft themselves take care of a lot of things. So it is asking me to log in. The client IP doesn't have access. Okay, I logged in. So now what it is going is it's signing into my account and it is creating something. It is whitelisting my IP. So this is our database and there is something called as firewall. So click on this. Okay. So right now this is the list of whitelisted IP addresses. Currently nothing is whitelisted. It is going to add my IP address. My IP address is shown here. If I want to add manually, I can click on this button or I can copy paste this IP addresses here. But I don't want to do that because SQL Server Management Studio, the client is doing that already. Let me refresh that and sorry, navigate again to firewall rules. It is still not added. Oh, it is waiting for my approval. Sorry, it is waiting for my approval, right? So here I can change my name and click OK. Okay, it is not able to add, but otherwise this will add. Because it's not able to do that, I will add it manually. All I need to do is click on this button, which will add this. I can change this Praveen IP address or something. So now I have single IP, so the start IP and end IP should be same. I am giving this public IP address. Remember, you should not give a local IP address, right? It should be public IP address, our internet IP address. Save it. So now a person from this or an application, anybody from this IP can connect to this database server. So this server might have 10 databases or 100 databases, we don't know. But all databases access will be given to people who are accessing from this IP address. Now my password is incorrect. Still I am trying to connect to it. Let's see what happens. It says login failed. Now it is giving different error. Earlier it was saying your IP address was not available, right? So the error is changed now because I gave incorrect password. Let me remove the last character. Now it will allow me to log in. So when you're working in your projects, some people might leave the companies, right? So they might know the password, username, password, and URL. Still, they will not be able to access the database because it's all secure. So this is old one. I don't want that to be there. Yeah. So now I can see all databases inside it. Of course, right now we have only one database. Okay. So we are going to create a new database table today. I already have a query ready. So I am going to run that query. Create table script. So this is our destination. Right now is empty. Okay. So creation of source and destination is ready. Now we need to start our main program using Azure Data Factory. So let's head over to browser, and I will leave it open because we may have to come back to this. Let me navigate to database. So now you can see some progress, right? There are 4% load on our database. This is all empty, but here we had 4%. Now nobody is using it, right? So it is down. And just now I created a table, so probably it will go up. There will be a delay. It is not real time chart. It is, I think, 2 minutes delay. So now I would like to open one more tab. We are going to work with Data Factory now. The ETL tool which connects to the source and process the data and load the data into destination. So Data Factory, click on create. Very similar UI. Choose the resource group, and it's highly recommended that all the services of a given project must be in the same location. Otherwise, we will face problems. What problems you would face, guys, if they are in different locations? Anybody? Anybody?
Latency
Why
issues.
should we create everything in one location?
Performance issue.
Very good. There will be latency issues if they are in different locations. Okay. So there are two versions of Data Factory. Unfortunately, this Data Factory name is not available. I think 2 is also taken. No, 2 is there. So there are two versions of Data Factory. Don't use V1. It's recommended to use V2. And then for now, we'll disable it. We don't want this. We will discuss what is Git, how to work with Git, Data Factory, all that we'll know. Those are the best practices that you should use in real time when you're working as a team. Okay, rest of them are not mandatory. I'm going to click on replace create. And click on create. So I am going to take at least 20 more minutes, guys. So please bear with me. This is going to get created in just 30 more seconds. Yeah, it is done. So Data Factory development is done in another website called Data Factory Studio. So click on open, which opens up a new URL, a website where you can work with Data Factory. So this is the place where Data Factory development will be done. Okay. So let's start. There are 4 tabs. Home, this is home. This is where you author is nothing but development. You can monitor here, and this is the management hub where you can manage a lot of things. Now, what is our requirement? Our requirement is to connect to source, do something, and then, do something means extract, retrieve the data, and then save the data into database, right? So first thing is Data Factory should know how to connect to source, how to connect to destination, right? Obviously. So first we need to connect to source and destination. So for that we need to create link services. We'll talk about more about link services and other things, but let me create a service for source. Our source is storage account in Azure. Search for storage, and this is the one that we should use. Select this, click continue. Now it is asking us, I'm going to create a link service for storage where we have CSV files. Okay, and which subscription? It pulls up all the things, and this is the one that we just created. I know the name, so I've selected this. Let's test whether Data Factory can connect to that or not. Yep, I'm able to test it. Click on create now. So now Data Factory can connect to storage account. Okay, so what did we choose? We have selected storage account name only, but we did not choose this container. We did not choose this file. That is still pending. Okay, we've only selected storage account name in the link service. Storage account name is this. So storage account has containers and container has blobs. So in storage terminology, this is a blob. This is a blob. Okay, so yeah, we are connected only up to storage account level. Yeah, this is source. Now target, we need to choose. What is our target? Our target type is SQL. So there are many SQLs that are supported. Ours is Azure SQL Database. So link service for database destination, right? So select the subscription, select the server, select the database, and provide username password. Now guys, tell me, will I be able to connect to this? What do you guys think? Anybody? Do you think test will pass? No? Why?
Like the IP will be different, right?
Very good. So this is Azure. Still database is secure. Earlier I was a human. I'm not sitting inside Azure data center. It makes sense to reject me until I gave my IP address. But this is Azure. Still it is not allowing Azure services to connect to it. That's the power of security that database has. So if I open this, it's not any password failure, but it says the IP blah 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 is not supported. So this is the IP address of Data Factory. We need to whitelist that IP address in database. So go to database, go to firewall rules. There is province IP now, ADF IP. Save it. That's it. So now if I go back, I'll be jumping, guys. Please, if I'm going fast, please don't hesitate to stop me. Now let me do a test connection again. Now it is successful. Now let me go and hit create. So So I'm using some simple passwords. That's why Chrome is complaining, but just leave it. Yeah. So now we have connections to database and source and destination. So here the link service is connected only up to database. We did not choose which table, right? So here also we give partial information about source and partial information about destination. We need to provide more details, right? From the source, we need to specify which container, which file, and destination, which table we should insert. All those information we should provide, right? Let's do that. So now in order to do that, we need to navigate to author section, and there is a concept called data set. So now what is our source? Our source is blob, right? So search for blob again, click on this. It will ask you where is your what is the format of your file. Data Factory supports all this. Let's say you have overall 8 formats, right? Let's say you have 9 format. Don't worry, you can choose binary in that case. For example, you want to connect to Word document, for example. In that case, you can choose binary. For now, we know CSV, right? It's CSV, so we can select this. And it asks as a name, dataset underscore CSV. Here it is asking us to choose the source link service name. It has partial information up to storage account, right? And now it is asking us which container, which directory, which file. Okay. And because it is CSV, CSV has headers, right? So we need to say the first row is a header. And then we need to specify what file, what container. Click on this to browse. So it is showing us, basically it's connecting to Data Factory, is connecting to our storage account. And it is pulling up containers. Right now I have only one container. If you have hundreds of containers, all of them will be shown here. And we have only one file as of today. So select this and click OK. That's it. We have now fully connected to our source. So whenever you want to connect source, we need to create a link service plus data set. 2 things we should connect. So far good, we are done with connecting to source. But what about destination? We have partial connection to destination. So we need to complete that by creating one more data set, this time for SQL. So search for Azure SQL Database. We have it here. And provide a name, dataset underscore employee. And now what is the server detail or database detail? Yeah, link service. Now which table you want to connect? Employee. Click on OK. That's it. Okay, so now we are good. All the connections to source and destination are good. Now what is the next thing that we need to do? We need to develop a program which connects to our source, retrieves the data, and dumps the data into database. So that's a complex thing, right? But fortunately, that's very easy. So now you should create a pipeline. So this is a canvas of the pipeline where you develop your Data Factory workflow or Data Factory pipeline. So there, everything in a pipeline is called as activity. So pipeline is nothing but it's a flow, workflow of your tasks. Tasks are called as activities here. So now there are many activities. I think more than 80 or 90 activities are there in all these categories. What do we want to do? We want to transform the data, right? Extract, transform, and dump the data. So today we are not going to transform anything. We are just copy pasting the data from source to destination. So drag and drop. So copy data is very powerful activity. Provide a name. Copy employees from CSV to employee table. Some meaningful name. I'll just say copy data. Okay. So now there is a visual cues 1 that means there is one property which is missing inside this tab. It's asking what is the source connection and information about source. We need to choose CS because CS is our source, right? And then what is the target? Employee is the target. That's it. We're done. Those 1s are gone, right? That means it is done. We're done. It's as simple as it is. Now this task is a program written internally by Microsoft guys, which connects to source with the provided information, and it dumps the data into this particular destination. We gave table as the information, right? Now let's test it. Click on debug. I am running this manually. So as soon as I click, the progress of this pipeline is shown here. Right now it is queued. So this is a program which is running, right? We're not creating any server. This is an ETL program. In Azure, we're not creating any server. Directly we designed this and we are running it. Internally, there will be a server which will be allocated to this program, and that server is managed by Microsoft. Okay, you can also create your own server. That's also possible. We'll talk about those later in the course. But unfortunately, this failed. So I ran this program and it failed because I made some mistake somewhere. I don't know where I made some mistake, right? Let's troubleshoot it. So when you hover on this, basically we have only one task here, right? So that's why we see only one. If there are 10, 15 tasks, all those rows will be shown and everything will fail. If first one fails, rest of all will either skip or fail. So now when you hover on this, it will show up this comment box. Click on this. So now it says IP address is not allowed. Okay. We have allowed it already, right? But it again says we did not allow it because Data Factory would have multiple IP addresses. It will not use only one IP. It might have many. While testing the connection, it used this. Now it is using something else. So we have to either allow individual IP addresses or we can do range as well. Both are possible. If you have to do a range, then what you should do is 0.0 20.42.255.255. This is how you give range. Okay, but that's fine. I gave these two, and if from now onwards, if Data Factory is using one more IP apart from these two, probably that will not throw any error. I think this is the right way of giving the range. Yeah, it is done. Now let me go back to this and let me try to run one more time and see if this time it succeeds or not. So this will, yeah, the error gets cleared and it will run one more time. And for some reason you are not seeing this. Sometimes you might not see that. In that case, click on anywhere in the canvas. Then you will see this. These are properties of the pipeline. If you have selected anything, then corresponding details will be shown. Yeah, all right. I think it is done. So now, because it is done, it shows us this details box where you can click on this. And it says from blob storage in US to database in US. It was able to read one file. It read 10 rows, and it was able to insert 10 rows, whose size is 2 KB approximately. It is done. So now I can connect to our destination. Earlier it was empty. Now we can see all our data inserted into this. We did not write even a single insert query. No stored procedures, nothing, right? So Azure Data Factory has taken care of everything. So Data Factory is very powerful. There are many opportunities in only Data Factory. Of course, you need to learn storage account, you need to learn databases and related things, obviously. Um, yeah. So this is not yet saved. If you want to save, you need to click on publish all to save all this. Otherwise, you will lose those changes. There are multiple ways of saving it. This is the simplest way. Not a good practice when you're working as a team. Later, we'll learn how to follow those best practices. Right now, we are working with dev environment only, right? How do you work, promote this to higher environments? How do you automate those deployments? How to integrate DevOps? All that we'll learn in the actual sessions. So when we start working, we are going to develop one project. Of course, we'll learn all basics again. But we are going to develop this project. Okay, I will do it myself. You guys will have to practice this immediately on the same day. Next day, if you have any problems, you'll have to raise those questions to me, and I will try to resolve those problems. Okay. So I have documented all the requirements, but when we start the sessions, we will do it. So what happens if something fails in the middle? So what happens if it's successful? How to audit this when it starts? How to audit after it ends? If there is any error, then how to send an email? So all those different things we'll discuss. So right now we have only one source, one destination, right? Only employee state. What if there are many such things? There are 100 such CSV files which should be dumped into target. So how do you iterate through each and every such thing inside that? So we will learn all this in the sessions. So one pipeline, right now we have one pipeline for one table. What if there is one more table, one more CSV? We should not create separate pipelines for each of those requirements, right? So dynamically we should map source to destination, right? So how to do that, all that we'll learn. We'll create as a project. First we'll learn all the concepts. What is data flow? What is pipeline, data sets? We'll do deep dive on those things. We'll discuss about the rest of the tabs as well. And once you are comfortable, we will do the project. At least 2-3 days we'll spend time and implement those that project. So I think I'm done for today, guys, unless you have any questions. I'm open for questions now. Please go ahead. You can unmute yourself and ask me questions.
Yeah, I have a quick question, Praveen. So all this process, can it be automated in DevOps?
All this process means, can you please elaborate which process? Creation of
Like the creation of the database, we can automate that process, but the copy data from a CSV file in a storage account to the SQL server, can all this copying and any other steps that we add in this pipeline, can these be automated in DevOps?
absolutely yes. But first time you should develop like this. But for higher environments, we don't need to develop again. We will automate the deployments to higher environments automatically from here. But one time you need to develop it. Yeah, that's what you're also
Okay.
asking, right?
Sorry, you were saying something.
So that is what you are expecting, right? One time development, but there are 10 environments. So automate the creation of this automatically using DevOps in the higher environment. That process will be automated, but this one should be done manually, depending on the requirements. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. I was thinking of a scenario where you upload a CSV file to a storage account, which automatically triggers a pipeline
Oh,
in DevOps, and then
execution. You are saying execution of this pipeline automatically?
yeah.
Okay. I thought completely different. Yeah, absolutely. So now, right now, for testing, I ran this manually, right? So now what I want is, I don't want to run this manually. I want to schedule this. Absolutely, that's possible. You can create a trigger. You will learn about triggers. Yeah, absolutely. You can specify triggers. At what time? At what time zone? Is it repeated or once? So automatically you can schedule that to execute it. This is based on time. Okay, that's number one. But if you say, hey, I don't want based on time. I want this pipeline to kick off as soon as the file is uploaded in storage account. That's also possible. All I need to do is choose storage account and provide the details. That's it. If I create this trigger automatically from now onwards, as soon as the file is uploaded, it automatically kicks off this pipeline. Yeah, we'll see this as well in the sessions.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. So one thing is automation of execution of this pipeline. That's number one. But automated deployments to higher environments is also possible with DevOps. But this is automatic execution. For this, we need to use triggers, specifically block triggers. Yeah, next question, please.
Hi, Praveen. This is Prasad.
Yep.
The source and destination can be anything, or is there any restrictions?
Yeah, definitely there is restriction. You can see the source and destinations here, right? So only those are supported. So this list is growing. They're all source and destinations. I have not used all this. Okay. So these are all the sources and destination that are possible.
Okay.
Okay. And this list will keep on increasing as and when Microsoft has support. They will increase.
Got it. Yeah. And one more question, Praveen.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say today you done the pipeline with source and target. Source is lab and destination will be SQL Server. Tomorrow I wanted to change something in pipeline. So how can we maintain this history if something I lose?
Very good. Good question, right? Basically here we made some changes.
Okay.
Right. So how do you review changes? No, unfortunately, not possible with this approach. The way we follow today, right? It's not possible. So basically, you want to see the version. When you are working in a team, there might be 10 developers, right? And you guys might be working on this project for a year or 2 years. So now, let's say today your customer says, "Hey, the pipeline is not working as expected. It was working 3 months back properly. What was changed? What is changed now? Who changed it?" Unfortunately, all that is not possible with this approach. We will learn how to do that as well. Basically, we need to integrate Git. I'm not sure if you heard about Git. Git is a version control.
Yep.
So while creating Data Factory, I disabled something. Let me show you that. I intentionally disabled it. And I told you that we'll do it later, right? Configure Git later. But if you want to view all the versions, everything, we should configure Git here. Okay, this is how you do it while creating it, but we already created it, right? The other question is, can we enable Git now to our pipeline? Absolutely, yes. That's also possible.
Okay.
Set up Git, set up code repository. So I'll show you this as well in our sessions. That's
okay. I'm like, what kind of script it will be there? I'm like, if that is Git history.
It's ARM templates. Want to see
Okay,
that?
on-prem. Okay.
JSON, it's JSON. So, for example, right now I have one, source destination, right? So I want to export that into code. So go to here and go to ARM template. It gives us the code that is required for its JSON. So now we need to commit this into version control. This is the ARM template, and this is ARM template for pipeline. This is ARM template for rest of the things. Okay, it gives multiple types. Yeah. So this is a JSON code that will be pushed into Git.
Yeah. Got you, Praveen. Thanks. Yeah.
So any other questions, guys? Okay. So if not, then we will stop it here. I'm not sure if everybody is in the WhatsApp group. So there is a special WhatsApp group only for this batch. So if you guys, let me share that in the chat window. I know some of you are not part of this. If you are interested to join the course, please then only join this group. Please don't join because we will not sharing any knowledge in this group. So if you are only interested to join this, then only please join this group. Okay, I'm sharing this WhatsApp group in the chat window. So any other questions, guys? No?
Yes, Praveen, who will write the stored procedures? Do we need to write
Right?
stored procedures and create views?
It depends. Yeah, at least some basic stored procedures are required. If you have those knowledge, that's why I said, right, Data Factory, some basic knowledge of database is required. But generally, in large companies, right, it depends on company to company. In large companies, there already will be stored procedure database developers. So they will be taking care. But you guys will have to work mostly on Data Factory side.
Do you cover Azure functions and logic apps?
Definitely, logic apps is there. We'll have to work with that because we are going to learn that as well. But functions, it's not mandatory. For some reason, right? Data Factory is not very, though everything is drag and drop. That means you cannot write custom code, right? For complex, very, very complex functionalities, this doesn't support. In that case, you should go to Azure Functions, which supports us writing custom code using .NET, Python, PHP, blah, blah, blah. In that case, developers will write that code for you guys. You should know how to invoke them. That's it. We'll discuss that in the sessions.
Okay, thanks, man.
Praveen, one more question. So the timings would be same time or is there any changes?
No. 8 a.m. IST.
Okay, 8 a.m. to 9 a.m.
Minimum 9 a.m. Yeah, it might extend depending on the questions.
Okay, thanks.
So overall, we will study hours. Yeah, please go ahead.
Praveen, this is Suresh. I have one question. Same thing what you done, we can do in the Databricks, right?
Yes, we can do
Copying.
that in as well.
But when to go Data Factory and when to go Databricks? Actually, is there any?
Yes.
Databricks is a lot faster, right, compared to this?
See, the Data Factory is a product from Microsoft. It's a no-code solution. Without writing any code, you can achieve this. But in Data Factory, you will have to write script. Python, using Python, Scala.
Yeah, but compared to this Data Factory, Databricks is a lot faster, right, in memory concept. So, which case we will go for Data Factory or?
it has many factors, right? It's not about fast, right? Everything will be fast. Databricks is a very, very popular ETL and analytics service. It is also fast. It supports clustering, all that. In fact, some of this is here you see data fact. Here you see data flows, right? When we work with data flows internally, it will make use of Databricks cluster only. Internally, it creates a cluster of Databricks and it runs the program inside Databricks. It converts our UI-based activities into Databricks scripts and execute it. So it's not that Databricks is slow. No, Databricks is very, very fast. It's very, very popular in the industry as well. But there we will have to write some code. But Data Factory allows us to achieve complex functionalities without writing any line of code. But again, you cannot achieve everything in Data Factory without writing any code. There might be too complicated things. In that case, you will have to depend on Databricks or Azure Functions or something else where we can write code. But Data Factory will evolve, right? If there are many people who are asking about complex functionalities, then Microsoft guys are adding those functionalities so that we can achieve them without writing any line. I hope I answered your question. Any other questions, guys?
Can Databricks support C#?
C#?
Yeah.
Yeah, .NET Core also has support now, but main popular ones are Scala and Python.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Yeah, .NET guys are also working on supporting this Apache Spark programming. As of today in Databricks, when you create it, it allows only R, Java, Scala, SQL, and Python. But if you want to write Spark programming using .NET, it's available with .NET Core. .NET for Apache Spark. So I'm not sure if it is very popular, but still it should be in early stages. I think last 2 years back they have released this. So .NET for Spark, but I'm not sure how to use this inside Databricks. But PySpark is a very popular one for writing Apache Spark programs, especially Databricks. Okay. All right. If you do not have any questions, we can stop it here. And yeah, thank you so much, guys, for your time. Have a good weekend. Bye bye.
Yeah. Thanks, Praveen. You too.
Bye bye.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.